shared among the South Asian Christian, South Asian countries, particularly in terms of the politics of identities. Why we have selected the politics of identities under the theme peace and security in South Asia, which we focus mainly on the caste and ethnicity, because caste system and ethnicity very much as an identity of South Asian, particularly the down south of the countries which we belong. Any of the countries which we confine or identity of the South Asian countries, say it of Nepal, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Myanmar, Bhutan, we identify as a diverse country, which is also impact with caste system irrespectively as well. In any issue of any political or any social or any ecumenical or economical issue, the concerns that we have had, we always come across the issue of caste system. We always come across the issue of conflicts of identities here. For example, we talk of Myanmar, we have come across the conflict of the Rohingya, and we come across the caste system prevalently in Nepal, in India, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, even in Sri Lanka as well. So the identities problem becomes one of the most volatile region in the world, which is the South Asian region, which comprise of these 5-6 countries: Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, even to the extent of Maldives as well. You know, the negative effects of ongoing ethnic conflicts, civil wars, the ethnic cleansing, the communal and the political violence, the persecution against minority religious communities, especially against Dalits and Indigenous peoples, terrorism, counter-terrorism, religious extremism, militarization, gross and systematic violence of human rights, you know, unresolved interstate and intra-state conflicts, and subversive economic interests, etc. You name it. They're all visible even today, even before in the South Asian region. So, you know, this South Asia has become the hotbed of the war on terror and the victim of the strategic interests of major power blocs, keeping the region in a constant turmoil and uncertainty. So considering the number, the vastness of the population, which is considered to be 1/5 the world's population out of 7 point something billion, the South Asian region is accountable for more than 50% of the world's illiteracy and 40% of the world's poor. And this poverty-stricken region faces innumerable adversities in terms of securing peace, security, and development. Therefore, the increasing trend of ethnical intolerance and polarization of caste and identity create havoc in South Asia. Ethnicity has come to be recognized as an important, in some cases, dominant factor in search of regional peace and security. For example, Sikhs in the Indian province of Punjab, the Tamils in Sri Lanka, and the Sindhis in Pakistan, the so-called stateless Rohingya community, which I have mentioned in Myanmar, even in Bangladesh, even in India, that indicates that while ethnic conflicts generally arise, the domestic resources, the sources, it can involve into the significant foreign policy issue as well. And significantly, caste system has been in existence for centuries in South Asia. Through its forms and contents vary across the region. And caste is a mode of power, a weapon of action, and one of the criteria of making people's collective identity within groups. So this webinar aims to explore the opportunities and challenges for the young people in South Asia to engage in building peace and security in a global, national, and a local level as well. And I hope that this webinar addresses and develops and uncover the issue, the striking issue that has been sidelined, particularly mainly by the young people, and quite oftenly ignored in this issue, knowing the fact that it is the main issue here in South Asian countries. So considering that background, we would like to address these few uh, questions to our panelists. But before which, I would like to give a brief introduction of each of the panelists to all of you here. Uh, we have Reverend Dr. Balkrishna Sharma, we have Mr. Bishal Arora, and we have Ms. Pamela Livingston, which confines of from different background, different identity, and different specialization in this context of peace and security in South Asia. We have Reverend Dr. Balkrishna Sharma. Reverend Dr. B.K. Sharma is the principal of Nepal Theological College in Kathmandu. He has been in the Christian ministry for a long time, since 1981, and he studied um, his Bachelor of Theology at the Southern India, and BD from Union Biblical Seminary, Pune in Maharashtra, that also in India, and that comes under Serampur University, West Bengal. And for his MTH program in Hinduism, he studied at the Tribhuvan University in Kathmandu and did his MA in English at the University of Wales in UK. And for his PhD there program. And he also served as the chairman of Nepal Christian Society and Nepal Bible Society in Association for Theological Education in Nepal. And he has taught English at our campus in Kathmandu as a lecturer for a couple of years. And he is a visiting faculty at the Southern Asia Bible College, South Asian Institute of Advanced for Christian Studies, that is SIAX, in Bangalore. And he has published many articles, books, and has translated many books, or more than 50 books in Nepali language as well. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, and welcome to our webinar, the Reverend Dr. B.K. Sharma. And we also have the renowned journalist who is known in and out of particularly of the South Asian in regards to the political and religious ethnicity and the religious conflict in South Asia. Mr. Vishal Arora is a journalist, he's a writer, he's a photojournalist and videographer based in New Delhi, India. He is the founding editor of the Stories Asia, that is a new media organization that works through this collective of journalists from South and Southeast Asia. He has a vast experience, and his articles and his write-ups has been widely published, not only in India and throughout the well-renowned newspapers throughout the country and throughout the world. For example, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Guardian, you name it. We have a long list of his publication. He has the specialization in the politics and cultural issue, and at the same time, the religious intolerance and the communal violence in India, mainly against the Christian minority. And he has been invited to address many conferences and write-ups on many issues, and his articles has been widely published throughout the world by renowned newspapers, not only in the country, in India, but also in Southeast Asia and European and Western newspaper as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Vishal, for accepting our invitation to be part of the panelists as well. We also have Ms. Pamela Livingston. She is the upcoming women Dalit theologian. Pamela Livingston has earned her Bachelor of Divinity from Bishop's College, Kolkata in India, and MTH, Master of Theology from Tamil Nadu Theological Seminary, Madurai in India. Soon after her completion of BD studies, she worked as a project manager in Kerry Childcare Program in Kolkata that focused on holistic development of Dalit children there in Kolkata. And later, after her MTH studies, she has undergone training at the NCCI Isha on human sexuality and gender identity, and she has also served as program executive at GEET, G-E-E-T, that is the Gender Equity Enabling Timetable under the CSI Synod in Chennai in India. And she is now currently serving as a lecturer in the Department of Christian Theology in the Tamil Nadu Theological Seminary, Madurai. So friends, these are the selected renowned panelists for today's webinar, and we are very much fortunate to have three of them to raise the issue and address and uncover the issue of peace and security in South Asia. So friends, coming to the questions, we would like to jump forward to the questions which we have arised from the different perspective of each of these personalities that we have today. So friends, I would like to raise the questions first to Reverend Dr. B.K. Sharma, which we have briefly discussed about the culture that has emerged as a major factor in the politics at global, national, and local level. So inherent in that idea of culture is the issue of identity there, which has given birth to the politics of identities. So in the present context, to have an identity, asserting it against the homogenizing policies in the nation state and preserving that identity has become very common phenomenon. So today's, the present world is neither monocultural or not an identical unit. Rather, it is the multicultural landscape. But we see that not only in the South Asian context, even in the European, in the Western culture, even in the countries, we have come up. There is an emergence of global order that has developed the hegemonic and unitary tendencies. Like the global society, the nation states are also having multicultural societies that they have been trying to build the majoritarian and homogeneous unitary nations, which resulted into the political discourse that is dominated by the politics of identities and pluralism. So, Reverend Sharma, if we could, reflect on this politics of identities that has mushroomed in many of the countries, trying to identify themselves as the monogeneous and majoritarian countries. So, if we could kindly enlighten us with that.
So do I need to speak now?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Just briefly, or how long that? Just this is a rehearsal, right?
Oh, no, you can you can share it for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, the topic that I have been given is more to do with the identity in a pluralistic context of, there are various pluralistic contexts, and there is a religious pluralism, there's a political pluralism, there's a ethnicity, pluralistic ethnicity. So we live in a very, very diverse communities, nations. And now, though that is a reality of pluralism, but what we are sensing now today is that there is a identity issue that people are so much emphasizing. The first thing is, especially in the South Asian context, you can see how religion is playing a major role of identity. So in that identity, now the emphasis is given more the religion that are originated in South Asia. Okay, now Christianity and Islam, just they are outside. That's the way it's been interpreted. So even there are similarities between Christianity and other religions, those who look at Christianity, they always consider this to be from outside, though it's Asian origin, but not South Asian origin. So the religious identity is getting strength in our own country, right? So they say Omkar family identity. That means all these Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, they become like one. So there's a religious identity. Uh, and that is playing a major role into our context. And I think that is a true to India and some other Hindu-dominated nations. The Pakistan may be a different atmosphere, Bangladesh, where the Islamic impact is higher. So we have to see even in the South Asia, it's not the same identity issue in terms of religion. So people are narrowing down their identity to religion. And at the same time, there is also ethnicity emphasis. And ethnicity emphasis is more with the tribals, more with ethnic groups, which are little different than the core Hindu Buddhist groups. So they are also organizing themselves as a separate identity, finding out from their traditional religion, from their animistic. So basically, even you look at the identity issue, it somewhere links with their religious belief systems, religious practices. That's what I have been observing in our own country, and I think some of the other South Asian nations. So in a pluralistic society that we talk, of course, we are in a pluralistic society in terms of religion and even culture. There are multiple expressions of cultural elements in terms of people beliefs, their festivals, their practices. There are a lot of cultural issues in terms of their marriage arrangements. There are a lot of issues that come in the cultural expression, but even then those things are linked somehow with religion. Okay, now that's a very interesting phenomena today, why people want to unite in their own cluster with the religions, because religion is such a forceful element in the lives of people, and it has some divine kind of connection where they find more concrete identity rather than just other kinds of identity, rather than political identity, because political identity could change, within no time. But some of these identities are quite strong, and so how do we face such realities in our own context as a Christian, as a people who live in this pluralistic society, and how do we respond to some of the challenges, and how do we prepare Christians to face such challenges, because there is a very strong hostility within the larger community towards Christianity. That's what we have been experiencing, the persecution we have been experiencing. The law is against a Christian in some sense. So how do we prepare Christians to face such challenges where everyone feels a very of different identity, and even we say we are Nepali, and we have a cultural, we accept Nepali culture and all those concepts, but still people are hesitant to accept us. So there is a real big challenge of how to respond to such a environment in our own country. And I think it's true in many of the South Asian countries where the Hinduism, Buddhism, or the animistic elements are stronger. So I'm not very familiar with the identity issue of the Islamic context. I think they have a little more, a little different than what others have. So I think there is a challenge, and how do we as a Christians face these challenges and also bring our Christian impact or message to these people. So there are challenges which are not decreasing, they are increasing in our own context. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for the elaborate Christian perspective, which the Christian message plays a very important role in South Asia in the context of the rapid phasing of the Mediterranean from different religious perspective in South Asia. Thank you so much, Reverend Doctor, for the short and brief yet crisp input for the questions that we have put in the context of the South Asian countries. So friends, we also would like to put a questions to our next panelist, Mr. Vishal Arora, who is also specialized in the interstate, particularly in the religious, political, interstate contextualization, which we have specialized in it. So when it comes to this religious, national and historical pattern of conflict spread across all South Asian boundaries, the domestic problems cannot be separated from particular interstate relation alone. And at the same time, the ethnic tensions affects in the varying degrees relations between states in South Asia. States in the means, from one country to another country. So, Mr. Vishal, if we would like to put a question, throw a questions to you, is that is there any alternate interstate relationship or the outline that can be developed, leading the youth to address the ethnic conflicts, particularly in the South Asian countries?
Yeah, thank you. I think my answer would be a big yes to that question. Also because as a journalist, I would say, who's been covering conflict in South Asia and Southeast Asia, what I have seen is that, while we have always adopted a top-down method in, helping to resolve conflicts, that has not worked at all, because most conflicts are also intertwined with international politics. And in this part of the world, what we have increasingly seen is that the competition between the West or the US and China is something which is responsible in one sense, why we have these conflicts going on for such a long time. If I could give you an example, perhaps from Sri Lanka, we saw that Sri Lanka ended its civil war militarily, and they were human rights violations. The state turned authoritarian. It did not fear any international action or sanctions because China was there to protect Sri Lanka. Because China has been trying to diplomatically encircle India. It wants to have more influence than India, even in South Asia. And it does have a lot of influence, in fact, more than what India has. Now, if we talk about India or India and China, while we attribute most of the things to the India-China competition for geopolitical influence. But actually, if you look at things from China's eyes, it would say that India is simply a proxy of the West. India is seen as an American proxy, which is trying to counterbalance China's influence in this region. That's the problem that China has with India. So in this situation, when two powers are competing for geopolitical influence, the state often feels empowered because then it doesn't have to fear any international action. So if we think that our hope is that sometimes the United States will put pressure on the government, I think we are mistaken. Even in India, if you see when Mr. Donald Trump came here, he ended up praising our prime minister, despite knowing that Muslims were being attacked when Mr. Trump was here. Because for Mr. Trump, the most important thing was that, okay, finally we have one prime minister who is asserting India's influence and power in the region. And also, if you talk about the issue in Nepal, we know that, it's not only about Madhesi people and the people of the hill. We also know that India backs Madhesi people from here. Perhaps one reason is that India, because of its wrong policies, has lost its old traditional friends, namely the Nepali Congress or the UML. So it is hoping that maybe Madheshis will emerge as a larger, will have a larger political role in the country, and through that, India will continue to assert its influence. So what I want to say is that if we talk about interstate conflicts, or even if you talk about intrastate conflicts, I would say that there are some very highly powerful forces are they play a role in the conflicts that we are talking about. And we would be living in a fool's paradise to believe that something will happen, that they will stop misusing conflicts for their political gains. And even as a journalist, I would say my philosophy has changed. I would say maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, when I began to believe that if change has to come, it will have to be bottom up and not top down. And the reason for my hope is that now, because of the technology, it's possible for us to communicate to masses through social media or the networks that we can develop. What I have seen is that civil society generally, or even journalists like me, we have been writing for the governments or for the judiciary or for the parliament. Most journalists, I would say, hope that their pieces would end up starting a debate in parliament, for example, or that some human rights organization will take note of what you have reported on, and then there will be some kind of an impact. But what politicians do, what people who are trying to keep these conflicts alive, what they do is that they will speak to the people. They will have a narrative, a wrong narrative mostly, and they will think that people's minds is the battlefield. On the other hand, we who are part of civil society, we will not even have our own constituency to speak to. We only have powerful or the elite that we speak to, hoping that maybe change will come from there. Now, having said that, I would say that this question of whether youth can play a role in helping resolve this conflict, there is a huge scope there. I was reading about one experiment in Netherlands. It was about countering violent extremism. So what the United Nations did there was they used sports. They organized sports events between two parties that were in conflict. So they brought their youth together so that they could play friendly matches. So in one sense, I would say that they created space for them to come together, a platform that they could use to come together and not discuss necessarily what has led to the conflict, but just getting to know each other, at least coming together to do some fun activity, for example. And also I would say that because false narratives or misinformation are always some of the ingredients that are used in conflicts. If the youth believes in scholarship, and if they want, they can actually speak to each other with real information, not with, and to counter, uh, you know, false narratives that are being used. So I would say that I'm quite hopeful, and I believe in the power of the people in bringing change. If I could also say that countries even like North Korea, yes, they are authoritarian, but at the same time, we should, uh, I think, acknowledge that even North Korea uses a narrative. Sorry, there was a call that was coming. So they also use a narrative to justify authoritarianism, be it China or be it North Korea. For example, in North Korea, they would say that America is our enemy. They don't want us to grow. So we have to keep them away, for which they have to be extremely strict. Uh, Even in Sri Lanka, if you look at the situation now, they have a narrative. Oh, we had an attack on Easter. So we have a reason for laws that would violate some of your fundamental freedoms, but we have to do that. So narrative is always used because they also understand that they can't just say that, oh, I'm an authoritarian leader, you can do whatever you want to do. They will always use an excuse even to be authoritarian, which means that they do fear that if they are seen as illegitimate, they may not be able to carry on with their authoritarian rule or policies, which tells us that the people in power fear us who are ordinary citizens, because we do have a lot of power. So I am quite hopeful, and I would say that you know, if, for example, people from two countries begin to uh, come together and dialogue, that can be very meaningful, you know, for all the some solution to these conflicts that we have.
Okay, thank you, Vishal, for the positive note that you have shared, which the young people has a very much important role to be the bridge, if I put in a term that could connect and resolve the issue, the differences that we have in terms of the interstate and intrastate, the conflicts and the differences that we have. Thank you so much, Vishal, for bringing it in a positive note, which, because in a present context, as soon as we put on the news or any kind of news that we put, we first heard of the negative news, or to put in a ratio, it's much more more of the negative news rather than the positive news there. But you have created a room in a way that, there is still a hope, there is still a way in which to explore the connectivity and to resolve the differences in regards to peace and security within the interstate and the intrastate as well. Thank you so much, Vishal, and we'll be coming back to you in the next questions as well. So, but we would like to carry forward with the different perspective now, which we have heard of both from the theological, at the same time from the socio-political narratives. But we also like to listen and the perspective from the gender perspective, in which, the peace and prosperity, not particularly in the whole scenario of the political, but also from the individualistic and from the gender, and which is quite diverse, yet a very important and crucial role to be part of it in regards to building peace and security in the context. So we have Famila, which uh, which we would like to share with that there has been a major change from treating the caste as a rigid ritual stratum to caste as identity to negotiate power and resources, not only in a grassroots level, but even to the political and the international level in the South Asian context. So the caste system eroded at the ritual level, but emerged in the political and economic level, predominantly in the Pakistan, India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. Uh, I'm not sure about Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. I'm sure in Bangladesh, predominantly there must be a caste issue there, but I'm not sure about Bhutan and Myanmar. But the majority of the South Asian countries we have has been uh, identified with this infamous of caste system in a society. So we would like to put a question that from the is this the caste system a product of the complex histories and exists today in multiple forms, which our society is trying to get over it? So if you could say it from your perspective, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jan, for a very good question. I also thank my very learned co-panelists for their very insightful sessions. So, to answer this question, I would like to do a PowerPoint presentation. So, allow me to share my screen. Okay, I hope it is visible for everyone.
Yes,
Um,
it's visible.
Caste, a complex identity. So, in to answer this question, I would like to focus on what we must understand what is exactly caste and how it is functioning in our society. I'm not going to talk about how it is originated, the history, and all that. So, I'm going to focus only on to understand what exactly caste and how is it playing a vital role in our society even today. um, so what is caste? Caste reflects complexity and stratification. In fact, it is one of the most stratified and complex system in the world. Caste has indeed been in existence for centuries in South Asia, though its forms and contents vary across the region. The colonial writers developed theories and models of caste system as a peacefully integrated system, constantly reproducing itself through the idea of karma, dharma, and notions of purity and pollution. So, what is caste? Where did this term caste came from? Julian Pitt Rivers tells us that caste, or the Portuguese word casta, originally came from the Gothic word caste, which meant breed or nestling. The Columbia Encyclopedia suggests that caste originally meant baskets, and thus caste indicates categories. Others suggest that it comes from castes, which meant chaste, and hence this meant that castes were sexually exclusive groups of people. The Westerners, seeing it from their own perspective, believed that castes were social categories that maintained social purity. Thus, in using the term as caste, the Portuguese were indicating that what struck them most forcibly about the social divisions that they observed was that the Indians were concerned in maintaining racial purity. But the question is, what it was it to the Indians? What are the Indian words we use to describe the caste system? Varna. This is also a term that is used referred to caste. In the Indian caste, in the Indian context, caste can denote not only varna but also another concept called jati. The European term caste conflates the indigenous concepts of varna and jati. Varna, the term widely used to denote caste, can refer to a national all India fourfold division of society into estates based on function. The Vedas divided Hindu society in the post Vedic period into four categories or varnas. These varnas were associated with privileges as well as well defined and particular social occupations. The four varnas were Brahmin, the priestly class, and Kshatriyas, warriors, and Vaishya, traders, and Sudra are the servants. So, this is how occupationally the people were divided into four groups by Varna system. Jati. This is another term for caste which refers to named endogamous groups which are usually more or less localized or at least have a regional base. According to Declan Quigley, the sense of jati is of the people who are in some fundamental way alike because of their common origins and fundamentally different from who do not share these origins. Varna then is understood as a question of function, while jati is a question of common birth or origin. So we must understand how exactly the caste plays a vital role in the society. Narendra Kumar Dutt defines the caste system as having the following characteristics: endogamy, occupational specialization, hierarchy, commensality, hereditary membership. Again, we must consider Bougle, C.F. Bougle, who would argue that caste is essentially hierarchy, hereditary, and repulsion. Hutton describes a functional view of caste system for individual members, community functions, and function for the state and society as a whole. Gure gives a comprehensive definition of caste, according to him, the six main features of the caste systems are segmental division of society, hierarchy of groups, restriction of feeding and social intercourse, allied and religious disabilities and privileges of the different sections, lack of unrestricted choice of occupation, restriction on marriage. So, the concept of marriage circle plays a important role in keeping up together the caste system in the society and in the families. A marriage circle is a kin group that contains all those families with which a given person considers oneself related and contains all families with which marital arrangements may be made by members of that person's family. This body includes all those too closely related to be accepted as marriage partners, all those to whom one is already related by marriage, and all those sufficiently distantly related to be eligible for marriage. A marriage circle means marital rules, dietary rules, and occupational rules. So even now, the concept of marriage, the marriage circle within one's own family and related relatives, it is still on ongoing practice. Even more, it is not only previously it used to be within the families. With their network with family to one family to another family in their own caste background. Now this system of getting married within this marriage circle, it is even more established through the community of matrimonies. In the nowadays, we have matrimony sites. One family to another family, we bride and bridegrooms we can get from one based on their caste. Now we have this Nadar matrimony, Iyer matrimony. So many matrimonies are online these days. But I have not noticed any matrimony that says Dalit matrimony or any from discriminatory caste group matrimony. I haven't seen on TV advertisements yet. So, lastly, it should be pointed out that caste cannot exist by itself. A caste can only be recognized in contrast to other castes with which its members are closely involved in a network of economic, political, and ritual relationships. So, it works together with a network of promoting one another in only on their own family background or their own social group based on their caste. That includes their economic, political, and ritual relationships. So, caste is a way of organizing purity and pollution. So we must know what is this purity and pollution. This plays a more important role in perpetuating violence based on caste. When If we move from uh, general conceptualization of caste to move together to move to a caste communities to specific context of Dalit discrimination, we will we know that there were so many discrimination based on purity and pollution theory. These Dalit communities were considered as capable of polluting everything within the range of 74 feet. Their shadow is believed to pollute well water. These were the case even before. Even now, this was even though these were practiced in the past as a discrimination against the Dalits. Even now, we have seen news stating that the Dalit man carried his dead body, wife's dead body, for about 12 kilometer without getting any medical support from the hospital. And we have seen children were thrashed by the dominant community because of playing in the dominant community's water well. So these are not the cases previously. It is still an ongoing cases even in India now. So in her um, Mary Douglas shows us how purity is a concept that has been evoked to create a semblance of order in an inherently untidy, disorderly, and chaotic reality. She says, I believe that ideas about separating, purifying, demarcating, punishing transgressions have as their main function to impose system on an inherently untidy experience. It is only by exaggerating the difference between within and without, above and below, male and female, with and against, that a semblance of order is created. So, in the context of Dalit women are triple oppressed. How? Because of their gender, Dalits, Dalits women contribute 80% of social labor in India. Yet they face three three factors of oppression: caste, class, and gender. The globalization has only made the situation of women work, as it has led to the feminization of labor as well as made the labor of women expendable. We find that most difficult and mean works have been given to Dalit women, yet they are the one who receive very less play in their job, very less pay in their job. Even in Upanishads, the wombs of dominant caste women are considered as a pleasant wombs, but the womb of Dalit women, it is compared to a dog or swine or the Dalit woman. So Chandala women is referred as denoted as Dalit women. Their wombs are considered as a stinking womb. So in conclusion, so these Dalit women, even in physiologically, they have been under very much stress because of the menial jobs that they carry out, and the payment is also, their pay is also very less. But then they also undergo a psychological depression. So we find that in the struggle of life and death, for these Dalit women, human dignity is compromised. So that is the situation even today. So one of the serious problem that South Asian countries have been facing is social inequality. So social inequality is based on their caste and reservations and minimize their social inequality. Though government has a system of accepting these existence of caste groups as a reality and conducts administration accordingly. It is notable that the kind of classification of caste groups they employ, SC, BC, OBC, FC. So employ according to the jobs employ according by the government to the caste on based on their caste it is same as the Brahminical caste hierarchy model. They just label it differently. So, so Dalits are the economically poor. Their poverty must be recognized, and it is It is a special quality of deprivation. So the poverty is tied to the caste system, and this poverty, um, coupled with caste, makes it all the more unbearable and vulnerable. This happens even though Dalits are the most hardworking. 85% of agricultural products are Dalits labor, and yet they are hungry even today. So this is a serious issue, and we must voice out and stand up against caste discrimination. We must involve in the method and challenges and opportunities that foster equal opportunity for everyone. And we must involve in creating a just and inclusive communities in every way possibility, in every possible way. uh, Annihilation of caste system is the possible way of destroying the discriminatory codes to promote equity and equality. So liberation is what the Dalits need today. So we must work together to foster equal opportunity and just the very sense of justice is a very important thing for all of us to foster justice and peace in the church and society. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela, for this input that you have put from the Dalit perspective, which, um, despite of the various inputs that we have put trying to diminish or put a justice on the discrimination of caste system, yet the system that has put it has also been followed the hierarchical order of the caste system, even in the political economical system as such. So thank you so much for identifying that hierarchical layout of the work nature, even in the political and governmental work as well. And the call that you have put, the fact that the lowest strata of the caste system, the Dalit, has been uh, the major workhorse of the development, even in the political at the same time and the economical or development of the country in South Asia. So thank you so much, Famila, for the input. Friends, if you have any questions or doubt or any queries, you may kindly raise your hand or can directly drop into the chat box, which we will uh, comprehensively forward it to our resource persons and the panelists here. So friends, to conclude with it, we also have a final kind of questions for all the three panelists that we have, which I would like to request the panelists to answer subsequently one after another, starting with Reverend Dr. Sharma, who would like to ask is that, in this backdrop that we have heard, the politics of identities that we have discussed from different perspectives, even in the political and even the interstate, intrastate, even in the religiosity that we have, that, that results within a conflict of caste and ethnicity in South Asia. But we also have seen, even in the international level, even in the national and the grassroots level, we have seen many young women and men are actively promoting the culture of peace, the dialogue and the movement to promote justice and peaceful coexistence in the South Asian context. Yet, despite of the contribution that we have, the young people have contributed, many part of the society, their voices are often remain unheard of, and uh, especially in the multilateral settings. For example, we have heard of course, she is not from Asia, but then we have heard of Greta Thunberg, the Nobel Peace Prize, at the same time Malala in the South Asian context as well. Despite of the voices, of course, their voices are recognized in a certain level, yet there are equal contributions of the young people in South Asia as well. Yet that they have been ridiculed, and they have been ignored. I'd like to ask our what are the opportunities and the challenges in this context? The both as individual and the youth as a whole in South Asia can cultivate this politics of identities to promote the uh, the peace and security, not only at a grassroots level, but also in the interstate in the South Asian context. So if if I may ask Reverend Dr. B.K. Sharma to give response from there.
Yeah, thank you uh, for your comments and your question. What I see in many aspects of identity, whether it's a caste identity or ethnic identity or political or religious identity, what worldview we carry over many years, because it's very difficult to change the worldview. So this is always we see the action that's taking place, but we really don't see how that action has taken place. So we only treat the action rather than what is the root for that action, right? So I think that is our difficulties, how to really find out the root of some of these problems, because when people have their own identity, that is not necessarily bad, but the identity of superiority, uh, and despising some other, that's the problem. Okay, now identity itself is not bad, but how you use your identity to despise others in terms of your political identity, your ethnic identity, your religious identity, or your caste identity. What worldview we have been carrying in our own context, and especially South Asian context, where our worldview is developed in our religions. Okay, we may not be following that religion, but we are product of our culture. We are product of our practices that has been here for centuries. So those are reflected not just on books, they are reflected on behavior, our sayings, our stories, right? Those are all reflected. So when you have a stories even from your childhood, in your school classes, then you define who is Dalit and who is non-Dalit in the story. So a child will grow with that perception, the worldview, and see the differences right from the beginning, before a person is able to even find out what is right and wrong. So our worldview has to be kind of challenged. Okay, now we just heard about the caste structure. So caste structure has been more interpreted as a social inequality. But actually, I have done my studies on caste system. My thesis in Serampur College in 1993, my MTS thesis was on caste system. That's in Nepal, how the caste system was originated and what is its implications. And so most of the people, even who are activists to eradicate caste system, they only take it as a social issue, not a religious issue, because they feel bringing religious issue can bring conflict. But we have to bring the truth. So caste system is not just a social issue. It has a very strong religious foundation, Manusmriti, and it has been referred from the previous speaker in Upanishads or Brahmanas or even different Hindu scriptures. So until you address that aspect, and people are not ready to listen to that, because they feel like this is a religious issue and very delicate issue. So those have to be addressed, see, because our worldview has developed on those religious establishments over many years. And not only caste system, even other kinds of identities are built on those structure, right? Those structure, the karma and the juni, karma samsar, all those things that we have been given those kinds of ideas, you know, when we are brought up in our own context. So I think what is our worldview? That is a real challenge. And how do we bring that change to the worldview? because even you expect great things from the young people, either they will carry the worldview strongly, or they become more secular and don't have very clear worldview. So there's a lot of challenge. So how do we bring them change the worldview that is more human, that's more equal, that is understanding? And some of the worldviews that we have been carrying is really wrong, and it has a it's a basic, it's a foundation in such and such thing. So some of those things need to be addressed intentionally. You cannot simply assume that people are learning, people are understanding in our societies by themselves, and that's not going to happen. There has to be some kind of intentional addressings. Okay, now these are the challenges, and what are the basics of those challenges, and how do you overcome those challenges? Some of these identity issues need to be really addressed, because many of these identity issues that we find in different areas are really the contribution of the worldviews that we have been carrying for long time, from many generations. And you may think that you are secularly educated. I have no those worldviews. No, within your inner heart there are those worldviews there. So how do you address your worldviews within that one? All right. So these are some of the challenges. How do we address those things? The young people or the old people or all kinds of people. I think that has to be addressed. And so this is not a prescription that I'm talking about, right? You may think like, we cannot give prescription to the people who are going out, this is the right way of thinking. But we have to see what is human and what is equal understanding, the dignity of all people, whether they accept this view or that view, how they could be respected. Some of those things need to be addressed, I think, intentionally, so that our young people will have a balanced understanding in the days to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for the elaborate response to the questions of which young people has very much important role in it. So if I may ask Vishal to respond from the the South Asian, the interstate political perspective, which young people plays a very important role in it.
Yeah, I think one problem that we have in this part of the world is uh, our understanding of what rights are, as opposed to what the Western world thinks rights are. So we see this clash of two ideologies here. For example, we don't believe in individual rights so much. We believe that a religion can be protected at the expense of an individual's rights. Or we think that the rights of an individual can be sacrificed to save a society or a nation. So I would say that we are often branded as uh, coming with a Western agenda. In Nepal, I think Dr. Sharma also would agree that the government there is trying its best to resist Western influence, including the Western understanding of what democracy is. In fact, I got to know that India and China, in a very unique and strange move, got together in Nepal and lobbied politicians so that there will be a crackdown on organizations working in Nepal, because they do not want Western influence, which would mean the Western kind of democracy or the Western understanding of rights and democracies. And it's also, I think, about the branding of people who are trying to bring change, including in India. if I could use again an example from Nepal, there was this sociologist named Dor Bahadur Bishta, who wrote a book called Development. He said that because Nepal are Hindu and they believe in it's not that there is some problem with the distribution of wealth, but it has to do with my karma. So, in a way, he suggested that change will come with a foreign ideology. And India is also a Hindu majority nation. And what comprises India's civil society? It's leftists, communists, a foreign ideology. Or you have Christians, foreign worldview, and then you have Muslims. And who are the people that the current government hates and targets? It's the communists, Christians, and Muslims. In fact, you will see that how this government is targeting these three groups and how they brand you as one. The moment you start talking about change, uh, you will be branded as pseudo secular, for example, a term that we use that is being used here in India, or you are a Muslim or a Christian and not an ordinary citizen. So your voice is kind of marginalized and overlooked and ignored as coming from not from this land but from outside. I think this is a very big challenge of the how we look at democracy and rights, and uh, also our identity, which is something that the youth needs to deal with or understand.
Thank you, Vishal, for the quick response. Before going to Famila, we have two questions from the audience. One from Bijoy and Jacob. Here, I would like to address three of you, which I would like to throw in open. So whichever is relevant or comfortable to answer, you can answer here. Here, Bijoy, he asks here that how has politicization of caste through caste-based parties impacted the opportunity to bridge differences, as they now need this very difference to persist to stay relevant. And the other questions from Jacob is that the Indian church context uh, also sees the caste system masked in regionalism based on language. So this has probably left youth disillusioned and may have even caused them to leave the church. So how can this be tackled? So if um, Dr. Sharma can answer to this. Of course, the question based on the Indian context, but then from the caste, politicization of different caste, I'm sure it has been relevant in Nepal as well, because many politics has been formed based on the region of language, but most predominantly on the caste-based party. So if we could put in there.
Okay, now the maybe Famila can address, since she has also brought this idea of the caste system. Um, I think the caste system that we are experiencing is a very long practice, especially in the South Asian context. Of course, there are problems in other nations. There are racial problems and other kinds of problems. But if you look at the really in-depth problem of caste, that is very special to the South Asian or the Hindu context. Okay, now that we have to accept. That's very different kind. You can be well off with your economy, but still you are not accepted. So it's not a matter of economy or your, many other things. It has a very strong connections with your ritualistic ideas of, practice. So the question here, how has politicization of caste through caste-based parties impacted the opportunity to bridge the different differences, as they now need these very differences to persist, to stay relevant. Uh, okay, now caste system is a very, very sentimental. Okay, now you can attach with that, and also its identity. Uh, so when there are a lot of attempts to eradicate caste system, and of course in Nepal or India and many other nations, constitutionally caste system has been eradicated. Okay, so there is no caste system in the constitution. You cannot practice that. It's a punishable. But when it comes to the practice, so there is a sentimental connections people have. And so the question here is how that politicization has happened to the caste system, and how the different maybe based parties impacted the opportunity to bridge the difference, as they now need these very differences to persist, to stay in relevant. So people can use this practice. And also there are people even in Indian politics where people vote on the basis of their caste identification. Okay, now that is a very practical thing you can find in Bihar and so many other places where that is very much emphasized. And so politicians also go and ask votes on the basis of their caste. So that actually doesn't reduce the caste practice. It really encourages people. So even there are a lot of debates on the what do you call, the reservation for the caste. How that happens? Is it good? It is not good. Uh, is it problematic? So there are a lot of issues which have no easy answers, right? Because when there is a caste reservation, the difference between the caste and the other people, it widens higher, because people have a psychology. Okay, now they are given privileges on the basis of this. So there are a lot of issues, and also people have, of course, used this caste system in order to have identity, and people go for that. So though these differences uh, have been made for their own particular identity and benefit. I think I'll just very briefly address the second one. The Indian church context also sees the caste system a mask in the regionalism based on language. This has probably left the youth disillusioned and may have even caused them to leave the church. How can this be tackled? Okay, now, so regionalism on the basis of caste or not, that's I don't know, because it can be also on the basis of the language. So there are instances, I think, even in India or even other Hindu-dominated places where there are practices of caste, even within Christianity, or even within Islam. And of course, in Buddhism, there is a very strong caste structure, caste practice, and that's all impacted by the Hindu. Okay, now, as Bisal has said, because we are not an individualistic society, we are a community. So many times the caste system has come to the churches or this different section because of the community context, because there is no individual decision when there something happens the within the intercaste kind of thing. So community objects that rather than even family, because there are a lot of studies done. Even I have done that. I have done a lot of interviews and seen sometime, okay, now intercaste marriage, the family is ready to accept, but because of the pressure of the community, right, sometimes the marriage breaks. So there is a very strong societal community dynamism in this part of the world. So that because of that, there has been a practice of caste inside the church. Church may not like to practice that, but there is a pressure from outside in terms of, like, some of them might have become Christian, or they have a long history of how they became Christian, their family kind of connections. So there are a lot of challenge, and I think when people see this phenomena, the young people, then they may be discouraged how this is being practiced. So we need to go into the root of why those practices have come to our churches, and how that has to be addressed, and made people aware of why it has crept inside, and how it has to be eradicated. So some of those things are not easy, but it can be worked out. Maybe intentionally have to be done, and maybe many people are not intentionally taking it, because still they have other kinds of social pressure, community pressure. That's what I see in this kinds of context. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for the elaborated answers that you have, response that you have given. Well, friends, we have overshooting our time, so we'll conclude from here. But before that, if Pamela would like to add something
Yes.
which is related to these questions from your perspective, yeah,
Yes.
in
Thank
brief,
you,
yeah.
Jan. Um, for the first question, how has politicization of caste through caste-based parties? I think Dr. Balakrishna has explained it very well. So I would like to add a point that these politicization of caste through caste-based parties, actually that implies like uh, caste is being used as a to gain political voice, to gain the political power in the society. They use the name of caste by the dominant. So it is a need of the hour to gain political and economic voice for the Dalit people to come to power, to denounce the dominant hierarchical order. So it is not that always the dominant group should be on the power in the to gain the political voice. So to give the opportunity even for the Dalit groups, Dalit women, Dalit men have to these agree. See, for many decision making bodies, um, for even for in the area of agriculture, ministers are not from Dalit background. So how they can make a decision or make an policies that improve the livelihood of agriculture farmers, those who are actually Dalits. So we need to gain the political voice, the to make the improvement for agriculture area. I think the farmer should be the voice, should be the representative of their own community, their own members. So that's how we can interchange the um, opportunities and make policies that are more justful. And coming to the second question, the Indian church context also sees the caste system masked in religionism and based on language. This has probably left the youth disillusioned and may have even caused them to leave the church. How can this be tackled? So when I talked about these caste system purity and pollution theory, it is not only confined within the Hindu religion, it is also very much prevalent even in our church, in our Christian society. Though we all confess to one Lord, one Christ and one baptism, but we are not ready to confess and conform our identity to one body of Christ. We are confirming our identity to many different jatis within our own church premises. There are in down south India, we have churches seatings differently. We have churches that seats are different for Dalit people and for dominant group. In most of the churches, Dalit people used to sit down and the dominant group will sit up in the chairs. So these hierarchical discriminatory orders are very much visible in the church. And the very problem what we have today is we are not realizing that this is a serious sin. So we must realize the practice of jati, caste within our own context. It is a serious sin against God and God's people. So as we are all created in the same image of God, there should not be any difference. There should not be, as the verse says, there is no Jew or Hebrew, slave or free, men or male or female, we are all one in Christ. So we have to affirm our identity in in Christ without any discriminatory roles or attitude against another people. So we must love one another. We must promote justice. So when it comes to challenges and opportunities for youth, I'm sure that our challenges are limited to view youth as a kid. We are viewing youth as a kid and a young people. So we are minimizing or belittling the power of youth. So that is not the real case. We must explore our opportunities. Whenever the opportunities comes, we must utilize the opportunities, and we have to be the voice of voiceless. We have to be the instrument of justice and peace to promote solidarity in our church and our society. So we need to be the change. When the time comes, when you face a counter to practice caste system, that you are confined to marry this person because of this caste, this thing. So you must be the voice to say no. That I don't want to be the same. I don't want to follow the same tradition just as my family has followed. I have to in every way possible, I have to be the change to promote justice. So opportunities are more. And also it is important we have to network even among the youth groups. We have start networking among the NGO based organizations, movements. That is also more important. And we have to be the surveillant of what is going on in the society, and how can we foster peace. So that is also more important. So that's it, Jian.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pamela,
Thank you.
for the response from the Indian perspective and Dalit perspective. So, friends, as I said, we have crossed our time for with almost a half an hour more now. So, I'd like to give tender render the thanks to all the renowned panelists for accepting our invitation and sharing the response with the different views and perspective in regards to peace and security in Southeast Asia, the politics of identities, particularly in the context of ethnicity and the caste system, which is predominantly relevant in Southeast Asia. Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Krishna Sharma, Mr. Vishal Arora, and Ms. Pamela Livingston for your time, sparing available time despite of a busy schedule. Yet you have delivered the solid response and from different perspective that enables the youth in South Asia to tackle the issue of peace and security here in South Asia, which we find that it is not only an issue that has been facing by the particular country in South Asia, but it has been shared in the South Asian context, which is very much facing by the society, um, politically, socially, economically, even religiously. So thank you so much once again to three of you for your response and the interactions and inputs that you have shared to these young people of South Asia. And on behalf of the second, we'd like to give a lot of thanks and express our gratitude to three of you for your valuable response. So I'd like to give time to Stephen for if there is any input from his side. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Jian, for facilitating this discussion. And also thank you so much to all the panelists. I think a lot to reflect in the context of South Asia and the complexity that we have in this region. You know, there are lines of similarity, but then there is so much complexity as well. And as we are now in a context in which there's a perception of among the majority that they're feeling marginalized, and which is leading to a blend of politics in light, which is also making things challenging. So the question, as Christian youths, where is it that we stand. So thank you so much to everyone. Apologies, this particular webinar, we had a little technical issues and logistics, but this webinar will also be uploaded into the SACIN website, which will be open to all SACIN alumni to view at a time frame where they can. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Jian and Stephen and all our friends for this opportunity to come together and reflect some of our challenges that we go through. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank
so
you so
the
much.
webinar is-
Thank you. Thank you for the great points. Thank you.
Thank you, South Asia Christian Youth Network for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
It's a very insightful discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
See, we can stop the recording, then we can just.
Yeah. So I'm stopping the recording at this point. But yeah, we'll keep the channel open if people want to connect and talk more.